The story around King Von has never really gone quiet, but this time, it hit different. When King Von's mother finally spoke out, her words didn't sound like headlines or clout. They sounded like pain that had been sitting in silence for far too long. For years, fans have argued about Von's legacy, his music, his street reputation, and his loyalty to OTF. But very few people stop to think about the woman who watched her son rise fast, live loud, and leave this world violently. Her voice cracked through the noise, and suddenly the story felt heavier than ever. At the same time, Wallo267 stepped in with something most people weren't ready to hear. Not judgment, not praise, but perspective. Wallo didn't talk like an outsider looking in. He spoke like someone who understands the cost of survival, the weight of the streets, and the emotional damage that never shows up on Instagram or in rap lyrics. When he explained the pain behind OTF, it wasn't about pointing fingers. It was about explaining how trauma gets passed down, how loyalty can become a cage, and how love and loss get tangled together in ways that destroy families from the inside. What made this moment explode online was the contrast. On one side, a grieving mother trying to protect her son's name while mourning the life he never got to live fully. On the other, Wallo putting words to a reality many fans celebrate without understanding. Together, their voices peeled back the glamorous image surrounding street success and exposed the emotional wreckage left behind. Suddenly, OTF wasn't just a label or a movement. It felt like a family marked by constant funerals and unfinished futures. Fans reacted instantly. Some felt uncomfortable hearing the truth laid bare. Others admitted they'd never thought about the cost beyond the music. Old interviews resurfaced. Lyrics were replayed with new meaning. People started realizing that behind every viral moment and chart-topping song, there are parents, siblings, and children carrying grief that never goes away. This wasn't about rewriting King Von's story. It was about expanding it, about acknowledging that greatness and tragedy can exist in the same space. And as King Von's mom spoke from the heart and Wallo267 translated pain into understanding, one thing became clear. This conversation wasn't meant to entertain. It was meant to wake people up. For a long time, King Von's story was told almost entirely through music, street lore, and viral moments. Fans knew the lyrics, the interviews, the energy he brought to every track, but they rarely heard from the people who knew him before the fame, before the chains, before the cameras. That's why hearing his mother speak out landed so hard. Her words didn't feel rehearsed or strategic. They felt like something she had been carrying quietly while the world debated who her son was supposed to be. She didn't start by talking about rap or numbers or beef. She talked about a little boy from Chicago who had a smile, a temper, and a heart that felt everything deeply. She talked about fear, the kind a mother lives with when her child grows up in an environment where danger feels normal. Every success was bittersweet. Every achievement came with the anxiety that something could go wrong at any moment. And when it did, the pain wasn't sudden. It was the fulfillment of a fear she had been trying to outrun for years. What made her words cut even deeper was the way she addressed the public narrative. She wasn't denying who King Von was or pretending his life was clean. Instead, she asked people to stop flattening him into a character, to stop turning his life and death into entertainment, to remember that behind every headline was a family that didn't get to log out when the conversation moved on. Her grief wasn't dramatic. It was steady, heavy, and permanent. As her message spread, it forced fans to confront an uncomfortable truth. Many had celebrated the same things that ultimately led to Von's downfall. The aggression, the authenticity, the rawness. Those qualities made his music powerful, but they also kept him locked in a cycle that was nearly impossible to escape. Hearing that reality from his mother stripped away the romance and left only the cost. This is where Wallo267's voice became crucial. Wallo didn't speak as a critic or fan. He spoke as someone who survived long enough to reflect. When he explained the pain behind OTF, he wasn't attacking Dirk or the movement. He was explaining how environments shape decisions, and how loyalty can feel like love while slowly becoming a trap. He talked about how young men are often celebrated for surviving chaos, but rarely taught how to heal from it. Wallo emphasized that trauma doesn't disappear when money arrives. In fact, it often follows harder. Fame amplifies unresolved pain. The streets don't leave you just because you leave them physically. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, they stay. And when an entire crew is built on shared survival, walking away can feel like betrayal, even if staying is deadly. OTF, in that context, wasn't just a label. It was a bond formed in struggle, a brotherhood forged in loss. That bond created loyalty strong enough to lift people out of poverty, but also heavy enough to pull them back into conflict. Wallo explained that without guidance, without therapy, without space to unlearn survival instincts, success becomes another battlefield. The reaction to his words was divided. Some fans felt he was being too harsh, too honest, too willing to disrupt a legacy they wanted to keep untouched. Others felt relief. Relief that someone finally said what many were afraid to admit, that the system surrounding street success often doesn't include a plan for longevity. It teaches how to get out, but not how to stay out. As these two voices echoed together, a mother's grief and a survivor's insight, the narrative around King Von began to shift. Not away from accountability, but toward humanity. People started asking different questions. Not just what he did, but what he endured. Not just how he died, but how many warning signs were ignored along the way. This moment didn't erase the violence or excuse the choices, but it complicated the story in a way that felt necessary. It reminded everyone that legacies aren't just built in songs and streams. They are also carried by the people left behind, trying to make sense of a loss that never truly ends. As the conversation continued to spread, something shifted in how people talked about King Von and OTF. The tone became quieter, more reflective. Instead of arguing over who was right or wrong, many started asking how things reached this point in the first place. That question opened a deeper discussion about cycles of violence, loyalty, and expectation that don't start with rap fame but often end there. One of the hardest truths to surface was the idea that success doesn't automatically mean escape. For many young men from similar environments, getting money and recognition feels like winning the war. But what Wallo kept stressing was that survival mode doesn't switch off just because the bank account changes. The same instincts that protect you in the streets can destroy you when the stakes get bigger and the spotlight gets brighter. King Von didn't suddenly become a different person when fame arrived. He carried his past with him every step of the way. His mother's pain added emotional weight to that reality. She spoke about moments when she saw hope, when it felt like maybe things were finally calming down. Tours, fans, success, all signs of a future that could have been longer, safer, more stable. But hope, in that environment, is fragile. It lives side by side with fear. Every late-night call, every news alert, every unfamiliar number on the phone brings anxiety rushing back. Fame didn't give her peace. It gave her more reasons to worry. The public often assumes families benefit from the lifestyle without paying attention to the emotional toll. King Von's mother made it clear that no amount of money replaces peace of mind. No viral moment outweighs the fear of losing your child. And when loss finally comes, there's no celebration left, only questions and silence. Her words force fans to sit with the reality that behind every fallen artist is a family left picking up pieces the world never sees. Wallo's explanation of OTF added another layer. He talked about how movements built on survival often struggle with growth. When a group forms around shared trauma, success doesn't erase that foundation. It strengthens the bond, but also the baggage. Loyalty becomes sacred. Questioning patterns becomes dangerous. Leaving feels impossible. In that space, accountability is hard to practice because everyone is protecting each other from the same pain they are afraid to face. This doesn't mean the people involved lack intelligence or heart. It means they've been conditioned to respond to threats in certain ways. Wallo stressed that without intervention, mental health support, guidance, and honest conversations, the same outcomes repeat. Different faces, same funerals. Different songs, same grief. And the industry, he hinted, often benefits from the chaos without investing in the healing. Fans began revisiting King Von's music through this lens. Lyrics that once sounded like bravado now felt like warnings. Stories that felt cinematic suddenly felt confessional. It wasn't about censoring his art or rewriting history. It was about understanding it more fully. His music didn't just reflect violence. It documented a mindset shaped by constant pressure and unresolved trauma. What made this moment powerful was the absence of blame shifting. King Von's mother didn't point fingers. Wallo didn't attack individuals. Instead, they highlighted a system that celebrates resilience without offering recovery. A culture that applauds survival stories but ignores the emotional damage that comes with them. That honesty made people uncomfortable, but discomfort was part of the point. The reaction online showed a divide between consumption and empathy. Some fans wanted to keep the legend untouched, frozen in time. Others felt a responsibility to learn from the loss. That divide mirrors a larger issue in hip-hop culture, the tension between honoring authenticity and acknowledging its consequences. King Von embodied that tension in a way few artists ever have. As the dust settled, one thing became clearer. This wasn't about taking anything away from King Von's legacy. It was about adding truth to it, about recognizing that greatness can exist alongside tragedy, and that ignoring the pain behind the success only guarantees repetition. His story, through his mother's voice and Wallo's insight, became less about glorification and more about reflection. And reflection, while uncomfortable, is necessary. Because if these conversations stop at sympathy and don't lead to change, then the pain becomes just another viral moment. This chapter wasn't meant to end with agreement. It was meant to start awareness. Awareness that behind OTF, behind the music, behind the image, there's real loss. And unless that loss is taken seriously, history has a way of repeating itself. As the story continued to unfold, the focus gradually shifted from speculation and headlines to understanding the deeper consequences of life inside OTF. Fans had long debated King Von's music, his street reputation, and the incidents that shaped his legacy, but rarely had anyone peeled back the layers to examine the toll it took on those closest to him. Wallo267's commentary added critical context, shedding light on the emotional complexity behind the label's loyalty, the dangers of the streets, and the weight carried by the families left behind. It became clear that OTF wasn't just a music movement or brand. It was a survival network forged in trauma, resilience, and loss. King Von's mother had already opened the conversation, speaking candidly about the pain of raising a child in a world that demanded toughness, courage, and often ruthlessness. She described nights filled with anxiety, days spent worrying about safety, and the constant reality of mortality that hung over her son's life. It wasn't just fear for his physical well-being. It was the fear of the invisible burdens, the stress, the heartbreak, the emotional strain of navigating an environment that offered both opportunity and extreme risk. Hearing her perspective reminded fans that the lives of these artists exist in more dimensions than their public personas reveal. Wallo267 expanded on this by discussing the internal dynamics within OTF. Loyalty in these spaces is complex. It can save lives, create bonds, and provide protection, but it also imposes expectations that are nearly impossible to navigate. One misstep can have severe consequences, not only for the individual but for everyone around them. Wallo described OTF not as a gang, nor merely as a label, but as a brotherhood forged under extreme pressure. That pressure, while strengthening ties, can also amplify trauma. The emotional weight of this loyalty often manifests in ways that fans never see: bursts of aggression, grief, and unresolved conflict that ripple through the lives of everyone involved. This insight changed how people interpreted King Von's life and music. Lyrics that once felt like bravado or storytelling now resonated as honest reflections of survival, responsibility, and the psychological cost of living in a constant state of alert. Every song, every verse, became a testimony of what it meant to navigate an environment where every choice carried both opportunity and risk. It wasn't just artistry, it was documentation. It was a way to communicate what was too dangerous to speak openly in other spaces. The conversation also revealed the difficult balance between fame and safety. As King Von's career grew, so did exposure, making him more vulnerable in ways that wealth and recognition couldn't shield against. Wallo's perspective highlighted that even the most talented and well-known figures in the industry remain deeply impacted. King Von's mother emphasized that behind the energy, charisma, and creativity she celebrated in her son, there was a constant need for guidance and support that went beyond money or fame. She spoke about missed opportunities for intervention, moments when mentors, management, or peers could have helped him navigate the pressures he faced. Wallo reinforced this, explaining how systemic neglect in these communities often leaves the most talented individuals vulnerable, forced to rely on their own instincts and loyalty networks to survive. In essence, the very system that celebrates their rise often fails to equip them for longevity. Fans responded to these revelations in mixed ways. Many expressed gratitude for the clarity and depth this perspective provided, acknowledging that fame and talent cannot fully compensate for trauma. Others struggled to reconcile the complexity with their existing admiration, uncomfortable with the acknowledgement that part of King Von's legacy was intertwined with loss, risk, and systemic hardship. That discomfort, while challenging, was necessary to fully understand the story. It reminded people that human experience rarely fits neatly into hero or villain narratives. As discussions continued online and in interviews, the broader implications became evident. The story of King Von, his mother's grief, and Wallo's insight highlighted how survival, loyalty, and trauma intersect in ways that influence not only individual lives but entire communities. Music, while powerful, cannot shield against the psychological and emotional impact of the environments these artists navigate. Recognizing that reality opens the door for more meaningful conversations about support, accountability, and the importance of addressing trauma proactively. By this phase, the narrative around King Von had shifted from idolization or sensationalism to reflection and understanding. His life became a lens through which fans, media, and even aspiring artists could examine the costs of street loyalty, the fragility of success, and the human toll that often remains invisible behind fame. The combination of his mother's candidness and Wallo267's perspective created a fuller, more nuanced view, one that honored his legacy while acknowledging the complexity of his experiences. This wasn't just a story of tragedy or talent. It was a story of resilience, human vulnerability, and the unspoken consequences that come with navigating a world where loyalty, survival, and loss are constantly intertwined. As the conversation around King Von, his mother, and Wallo267's insights continued to ripple through the community, it became clear that this story wasn't just about one individual or one label. It was about a larger system of survival, loyalty, and loss that has shaped countless lives in similar environments. King Von's life, as vivid and public as it was, became a focal point for understanding how street dynamics, fame, and emotional trauma intersect in ways most fans rarely consider. The pain expressed by his mother, combined with Wallo267's perspective, forced a reckoning. The narrative that had been simplified in headlines and viral clips needed complexity and context. King Von's mother spoke openly about the constant anxiety that accompanies raising a child in a dangerous environment. Her grief wasn't just about losing a son to violence. It was about the fear she carried for every choice he made, the worry over every interaction, and the knowledge that even minor missteps could have catastrophic consequences. She described a dual reality, one where she celebrated his achievements and his talent, while simultaneously dreading the dangers that fame and street life magnified. For years, she carried the burden of hope and fear, often privately, as public attention focused primarily on his music and notoriety rather than the human being behind the persona. Wallo267 added another layer to this story, emphasizing how OTF functions as both a lifeline and a pressure cooker. He described the loyalty within the group not as a casual friendship or business alliance, but as a survival mechanism forged in shared adversity. That kind of bond can be life-saving in dangerous situations, but it can also reinforce cycles of trauma, conflict, and high-stakes risk. For young men growing up in challenging environments, this loyalty often becomes a guiding principle, dictating decisions that might be misunderstood or condemned by outsiders. Wallo highlighted that OTF's strength and its burden are inseparable. To be part of the movement is to embrace both protection and risk. As the public processed these insights, it became evident that many fans had only ever considered the glamorized side of Von's story. Viral moments, music videos, interviews, and social media clips had created an image of charisma, confidence, and street credibility, but they rarely captured the hidden emotional toll. His mother's words reminded the public that behind every performance, there was a family living with constant fear, waiting for news that no parent should have to anticipate. Wallo's perspective filled in the gaps between fame and reality, exposing the pressure points that influence every move made within OTF and beyond. The combination of these voices reshaped the conversation online. Social media threads shifted from speculation about beefs and lyrics to reflection on trauma, loyalty, and systemic challenges. Fans began to consider questions they had previously ignored. What support systems are available for artists who come from these backgrounds? How do you honor loyalty without sacrificing safety? How does fame magnify vulnerability rather than mitigate it? These weren't easy questions, but they were necessary. They illuminated the fact that King Von's story wasn't an isolated tragedy. It was emblematic of a pattern repeated across communities and generations. Inside the streets and among those connected to OTF, the reaction was quieter but just as significant. Some members spoke about the need for more open conversations about mental health, trauma, and coping mechanisms. They acknowledged that loyalty and brotherhood are powerful tools, but without guidance, they can also reinforce cycles of conflict. The narrative around King Von's life became a teaching moment, an opportunity to explore ways to protect young talent, prevent avoidable loss, and balance the pressures of success with personal well-being. Moreover, the story forced a reckoning with how the music industry and fans consume the lives of artists. Wallo's insights made it clear that there's often a blind spot when it comes to understanding the human cost behind the art. Lyrics and personas are dissected for entertainment, while the psychological and emotional realities remain largely invisible. King Von's mother humanized the cost of that consumption, reminding the world that behind every viral moment or chart-topping track, there's a parent, a sibling, or a child bearing grief that cannot be quantified. By the end of this phase, the story surrounding King Von, his mother, and Wallo267 had evolved from a discussion about fame or controversy into a broader conversation about survival, loyalty, and accountability. The narrative demanded empathy, reflection, and recognition that the legacies of artists like King Von extend far beyond music. They include the families, friends, and communities who navigate the ripple effects of loss, and greatness and tragedy coexist, and understanding that duality is essential to honoring his legacy fully. This chapter didn't offer easy answers. It offered perspective, the kind that challenges assumptions, reshapes narratives, and demands attention to realities often hidden behind fame. King Von's life, his mother's grief, and Wallo267's explanations collectively highlighted the complexity of survival in environments where loyalty, talent, and risk collide. They reminded the world that beyond the music, beyond the headlines, there is a deeply human story that deserves recognition, understanding, and care. As the story reached its final chapter, the focus shifted from outrage and speculation to reflection, understanding, and the hard lessons embedded in King Von's life and legacy. By this point, it was clear that the conversation sparked by his mother's words and Wallo267's insight weren't just fleeting headlines. They were forcing the public to confront uncomfortable truths about loyalty, trauma, and the emotional cost of survival. The discussion had evolved from gossip and viral clips into a deeper, more meaningful exploration of what it truly means to navigate life within a high-risk environment while carrying immense responsibility and expectation. King Von's mother had already humanized him in ways that no social media post or music video ever could. She spoke not only of his talent, his drive, and his intelligence, but also of the fear and vulnerability he carried throughout his life. Every decision he made, whether on stage, in the studio, or on the streets, existed against a backdrop of anxiety and survival instincts honed from childhood. Her reflections reminded fans that behind every viral moment was a family enduring sleepless nights, waiting for news, fearing that the worst could happen at any moment. That dual reality of brilliance and danger, of public persona and private grief, reframed King Von's life in a more complex, nuanced light. Wallo267's contributions added another essential layer, helping the public understand the internal dynamics of OTF. Loyalty, he explained, isn't just a virtue in that world, it's a necessity. Members of the crew rely on each other for protection, guidance, and survival. But that bond also comes with invisible pressures. Decisions aren't made lightly, and consequences often ripple far beyond the immediate moment. Success can be both a blessing and a burden, increasing visibility, fame, and wealth, while simultaneously intensifying exposure to danger. Wallo emphasized that the cost of loyalty isn't always evident to outsiders, and that emotional and psychological wound can persist even in the presence of material gain. This combination of voices, a mother grieving her son and a survivor articulating the internal mechanisms of OTF, helped fans and observers understand that King Von's story isn't reducible to a single narrative. It isn't just about street life, crime, or music. It's about human resilience, about choices made in environments that demand constant vigilance, and about the way trauma shapes not only the individual, but everyone around them. Fans began looking at lyrics differently, seeing them not as entertainment alone, but as reflections of lived experiences and the constant balancing act between loyalty, survival, and ambition. The broader implications extended beyond King Von himself. This chapter illuminated recurring patterns in the industry and communities like the ones OTF represents. It revealed how systemic challenges, including poverty, violence, lack of access to mental health resources, and societal neglect, create circumstances where loyalty and survival instincts can both protect and endanger. It showed how young artists who rise to fame often do so while carrying generational trauma that isn't erased by money or recognition. By understanding these dynamics, fans, media, and industry professionals could begin to see the importance of accountability, mentorship, and proactive support in nurturing talent without sacrificing well-being. At the same time, King Von's story highlighted the ongoing need for empathy. His mother's grief and Wallo267's perspective reminded the world that behind every headline is a human life, a life shaped by decisions, experiences, and circumstances that are far more complex than a viral clip can convey. Fame and artistry can elevate a person, but they cannot erase vulnerability, loss, or emotional strain. The story forced the public to reconcile admiration with reflection, celebration with caution, and legacy with responsibility. By the end of this final chapter, the narrative had shifted in a profound way. What began as an emotionally charged response to commentary and social media speculation had transformed into a powerful, multi-layered understanding of King Von's life, the realities of OTF, and the human costs embedded in both. Fans were asked to confront uncomfortable truths, to honor not just the music but the lives behind it, and to recognize that growth and loyalty often come with invisible weight. King Von's life, viewed through the lens of his mother's grief and Wallo267's insight, became more than a story of talent lost. It became a story of resilience, context, and the complex interplay between survival, loyalty, and legacy. The final lesson was clear: to truly honor him, to learn from his experiences, and to support the next generation of artists, people must see beyond headlines, beyond glamorized images, and engage with the full reality of what it means to live, create, and survive under constant pressure. In the end, King Von's story is a caution, a tribute, and a call for understanding that the human cost of success is real, enduring, and deserves acknowledgement. King Von's story isn't just about music or fame. It's about the human cost behind every choice, every connection, and every moment in OTF. His mother's words and Wallo267's insight remind us that behind the headlines, there are families, friends, and communities carrying grief, trauma, and lessons that money and recognition can't erase. This is a moment to pause, reflect, and understand the realities of survival, loyalty, and legacy in ways that go beyond entertainment. Join the conversation by sharing your thoughts in the comments. How can the next generation of artists navigate fame without losing themselves or their loved ones? Make sure to like this video if you believe stories like this deserve more than viral clips, and subscribe so you don't miss updates, reactions, and deeper discussions on these ongoing realities. Turn on notifications and stay informed, because understanding the full story is the first step toward meaningful change.